There's something eerily timeless about small towns in Texas. The roads are quiet. The houses stand just a little too still. And when night falls, the darkness doesn't feel empty, it feels watched. Some say it's the history-buried secrets. Under dry soil, whispers of old crimes never solved. Others think it's something older, deeper, like the land remembers everything that's been done on it. And it waits until you're alone. Before reminding you, tonight, we take you on a journey through the forgotten corners of Texas. Towns you've probably never heard of. Duma, Chireno, Presidio, where normal people witness things no one could ever explain. Legends passed down from dusty books or internet forums. These are true, terrifying accounts from people who lived them, and some who didn't live to tell the tale, because in Texas, it's not just the big cities that hide horrors. It's the broken motels off the highway, the crooked trees in churchyards, the fading light on a desert road. When the sun sets in these small towns, something ancient stirs. So grab your headphones, turn down the lights, and don't look out the window. What you're about to hear might just be the reason you never drive through rural Texas alone again. And before we descend into these 7 true scary stories from Texas small towns, make sure you subscribe to Something Scary, where real horror meets reality. New nightmares await you every week. Hit that bell icon, because the scariest things are the ones that follow you home. Now, let's begin. Story 1. The Midnight Bell of Duma, Texas. Population, just under 15,000. But on the night I arrived, it felt like there was no one left at all. My name is Jared Wells. I'm 31, born and raised in Dallas, but I hadn't been back to Dumas since I was a child. My Uncle Greg had lived there his whole life. Never married, no kids, just him and that creaky old farmhouse on the edge of town. When he died, some kind of freak accident, and his barn I was the only living relative. Left to handle the estate, the place hadn't changed. Same 2-lane roads, same empty fields, stretching to nowhere. The wind still carried that dry, dusty hum you only get out in the Texas Panhandle. Like the earth itself was whispering something under its breath. I rolled into town just after dusk. The few gas station signs glowed dull orange against the darkening sky. But what struck me immediately was how quiet it was. No kids playing in yards, no dogs barking, just silence. I pulled up to Uncle Greg's house, an old wood frame place, with paint peeling and shutters half hanging. The air smelled like rust and dry wheat. I let myself in. Everything was exactly how he'd left it. Coffee cup still by the sink. Old newspapers stacked by the recliner. But on the kitchen table was a letter addressed to me. In Greg's handwriting. If you're reading this, I'm probably gone. Don't stay past midnight. Whatever you do, don't listen for the bell.
The bell?
I assumed it was just Greg being dramatic. He'd been into all sorts of strange stuff, UFOs, conspiracy theories. There were books everywhere and hauntings, ley lines, ancient rituals. But a bell? I laughed it off. That is, until 12:03 a.m., that's when I heard it. A single, heavy toll, like a massive church bell echoing across the fields. I stood dead still, no churches nearby. The only church in town had burned down in 1994. I remembered that from a news clipping. Greg kept, but I swear to why I heard it. One deep metallic gong, far in the distance. Then silence. I didn't sleep. The next morning I asked around. The gas station attendant just stared at me. What bell? She asked, her voice low. Ain't no bells around here. Even when I pressed, no one admitted to hearing it. No one wanted to talk. That second night, I sat up watching the clock. 12:03 a.m. Gong, same sound, this time louder. Closer, I stepped outside. The wind had stopped completely. There was no breeze, no insects, nothing. Then I noticed it. The farmhouse across the road, empty for years, had a light on upstairs. I walked toward it, heart pounding. But as I got closer, the light flickered, then went dark. I turned around. And Uncle Greg's house was dark too, but I had left the lights on. I ran back across the field, fumbled with the front door inside. Everything had changed. Photos on the wall were missing. The chair by the fireplace was gone. Even the scent, once familiar, now reeked of mildew and rot. But worst of all, there was a new photo on the hallway wall. A photo of me, standing outside the house. Taken from inside? I didn't sleep that night either. The next morning, I tried calling friends in Dallas. No signal. My phone showed full bars, but every call failed. My car wouldn't start. Not the battery, not the engine, just dead. I walked into town, found the police station, told the officer everything minus the ghost stuff, just that someone had broken into the house, messed with my things. He stared at me for a long moment, then said, "Mr. Wells, your uncle's been dead nearly a year. No one's lived in that house since." I froze. I know he's dead. That's why I'm here. I got the call a week ago. He narrowed his eyes. "Who called you?" When I checked my phone history, there was no record of any call. I left. And that night 3, I waited with a knife in my hand. 12:03 a.m. Gong. 3 tolls. That's when I looked out the window and saw someone standing at the edge of the cornfield. Still tall, staring. I opened the door to yell, but they were gone. Except now. There were footprints in the dirt leading up to the porch. That night I dreamed of fire, of people screaming, of that same bell tolling endlessly as the town burned. I saw my uncle on his knees, hands over his ears, whispering, "It never stops. It never stops." When I woke, the farmhouse was cold, but not empty. In the mirror, scrawled in condensation, were the words, "You heard it too." That was my last night in Duma. At dawn, I walked. Ivy. Hitched a ride with a trucker on Route 287. I never looked back. Uncle Greg's house? Gone now. Torn down. But if you ask anyone about that bell, they'll tell you it never existed. That you imagined it. That you're making it up. Better. Because even now back home in Dallas, windows locked, doors barred, I hear it faint, in the distance, every night, at exactly 12:03 a.m. gong, and I know that someday it'll be close enough that I won't wake up again. Story 2. The lights at Devil's Backbone there. It's a stretch of road in the Texas hill country they call the Devil's Backbone. It's a winding ridge with cliffs on either side, flanked by dark thickets and limestone rock. Beautiful in the daylight if you ignore the wreckage from decades of fatal crashes. But at night, locals say it comes alive. Lights, not car lights, not lanterns or planes. Strange lights. Silent, slow. Watching? My name is Claire Mendoza. I'm a documentary photographer. 2 summers ago, I was in Wimberley, Texas, trying to build a series on American folklore. I'd heard whispers about the backbone for years, but I didn't believe any of it, till the night I tried to capture the lights on film. At first, it was just a project. I wanted to tell the stories that get dismissed as myth-shadowy figures, haunted roads, forgotten superstitions. So when an old friend from college, Mason, said his grandparents lived near the Devil's Backbone and invited me to visit, I jumped at the chance. His grandmother, Maria, greeted me at the door with a face that looked like she'd lived through 1,000 bad dreams. I asked if she'd ever seen the lights. Her eyes narrowed. "If you see them," she said, "that means they've already seen you." I thought she was being dramatic. Mason rolled his eyes behind her back, but something in her voice stuck with me. That first night I drove out alone along Ranch Road 32. It was silent, dead silent, not even crickets. My headlights sliced through the dust, but beyond that just blackness and cliffs, I parked near a turnout, climbed onto the ridge, and set up my tripod. At 11:17 p.m., I saw them. Not flickering, not flashing, just glowing. 3 lights, pale white, hovering above the ridge across from me. They didn't move like helicopters or drones. They pulsed like breath, like something alive. I zoomed in. No source, no noise, nothing. I took 5 shots, 1 every 5 seconds. But when I reviewed them, They were gone. Every single photo came out pitch black. Then my camera froze. Dead battery, though it had been fully charged, and that's when I heard it. A woman's voice, whispering in Spanish. I don't speak Spanish, but I recognized one word. Corey. Run the Ridge suddenly felt wrong, too quiet, like the air wasn't moving. I turned and saw something standing in the middle of the road behind me. Not the lights, figure tall. Still, no features, just the silhouette of a person, unmoving, watching. I blinked and it was gone. I drove back, shaking. Maria was waiting at the porch. She didn't ask what happened, just placed a small silver cross in my hand and said, "Don't go back. They know your name now." The next day, Mason and I argued. He thought I was overreacting, maybe stressed. I wanted to leave, I told him. Something was wrong with the area, with the lights, the land. He laughed it off. Then he told me he'd never seen the lights. Not once. Not in 26 years of living there. That's when it hit. Maybe not everyone could. That night, I made the mistake of going back. This time, Mason came with me. He brought his drone, trying to prove it was some natural phenomena, gaslights, reflections, dust. We parked in the same spot, set up, waited. 11:10 p.m. Still. 11:17 p.m. The lights returned, only to this time, hovering just above the ridge. No sound, no movement, just waiting. Mason launched his drone. It rose, buzzed forward. Then the drone feed cut out. He cursed, trying to reconnect. But then something changed. The lights split into four. Each one moved independently, like they were circling us. One of them began descending. That's when Mason finally saw them with his own eyes. He went pale. "That's not normal," he whispered. We backed toward the car. Suddenly, the ridge behind us exploded, in a sound like a human scream warped through static. We both turned. It was a person standing in the brush. But not really a person. No face. No clothes. Just darkness. Stretched thin over bone, as if the figure was made of burned paper. It was holding something. Mason ran. Couldn't move. The figure took one step toward me, then another. It reached toward me and the lights blinked out. Gone, just like that. It was silent. I collapsed. When I woke, Mason was shaking me. We were in the car, on the side of the road. I don't remember getting there. I don't remember leaving the ridge. But in my pocket was a small, smooth stone, warm to the touch, with a carved symbol I couldn't recognize. We left Wimberley. That morning, I developed my film back in Dallas. None of the photos showed the lights. Not a single one. But in one frame, just one, there's a blur in the corner. A human hand reaching toward the lens. From behind me, I never showed anyone the picture, not even Mason. He refuses to talk about that night. He won't answer my calls anymore. A month later, I got a letter in the mail. No return address. Inside was a sheet of paper, no writing. Just a drawing, 4 pale circles, surrounding a human silhouette. I moved out of Texas, got rid of my equipment, stopped doing field photography. But some nights around 11:17 p.m., I see a faint glow in the sky. And I wonder, did I survive? The lights? Or am I just living in the space they let me borrow? 'Cause Maria was right. You don't find the lights, they find you. Story 3. The Woman Who Drowned in Van Alstyne Tone. Psychological horror. Creeping guilt, supernatural revenge. Van Alstyne is the kind of small Texas town where nothing ever happens, till something does. My name is Daniel Price. I'm a high school English teacher. And this story doesn't belong in a book. It belongs in the dark, where it started, 'cause I think someone or something is trying to make me confess to a crime I was never caught for. But that doesn't mean I didn't do it. It was the summer of 2006. I was 17, and she was the new girl. Her name was Emery Lane. Blonde, quiet, the kind of pretty that made you second-guess your confidence. No one knew where she came from. just that her parents moved to Van Alstyne from Louisiana after some incident. We're typical Texas kids: bonfires, back roads, cheap beer, and that cursed lake on the edge of town, Hidden Shoals. They called it that because the water looked calm, until it wasn't. That July, we were all there, 10 of us. Laughing, drunk. Emery was floating on an old tire tube, humming a song I didn't recognize. Then someone, maybe it was Trevor, maybe it was me. We were all reckless, shoved the tube hard. She tumbled in and never came back up. We dove in, screamed her name, Allah! But the lake was black that night, and the mud pulled like hands. By morning, search and rescue said they'd call it an accident. They never found her body, but I knew the truth. We all did. We left her out there. I moved on, or tried to. Left Van Alstyne, got a degree, became a teacher, married once briefly. But 10 months ago, I came back. My father got sick, and I took the job at my old high school to stay close, and that's when it started. The first time was just a glimpse. A hallway mirror during class change behind me. A face, wet hair, matted to pale skin, eyes that didn't blink. When I turned, nothing. I told myself it was stress, lack of sleep, but then came the whispers, always during third period. The faucet in the teacher's lounge would turn itself on, and in the rush of water, I'd hear it. A voice, a gurgle, like someone trying to scream underwater. Then one morning I found my desk soaked. No leak, no pipe burst, just water. And a single word scrawled in the puddle: remember. Students began talking. Rumors about the girl in the mirror in the girls' bathroom. One swore she saw someone crawling up from the floor drain during a fire drill. Another claimed her phone started playing an unfamiliar voice note on just a wet breathing sound and a girl whispering, "He did this to me." One day I snapped and marched back to the lake. Hidden Shoals looked the same, still and quiet. But the dock was rotting and the water had receded, revealing a ring of jagged rocks. I stood at the edge and said her name. Emery. I'm sorry. Something moved beneath the surface. Not a fish. Not a ripple. A hand. It rose pale and swollen for a second, then vanished. I ran. But the water came with me. That night, my bathroom filled with lake water, standing water. In the tub, in the sink, dripping from the ceiling, and there she was. In the mirror, hair tangled, lips split open. What? Angry, not screaming, just staring, like she was waiting for me to speak. But I didn't. I couldn't. Weeks passed. I stopped going out. Students said I looked pale, like I hadn't slept in days. I kept hearing the song she was humming that night, Tat the Lake. Just 3 haunting notes, always in threes, always followed by dripping sounds. I thought maybe I could fix it. I went to the sheriff. Told him I wanted to report something unsolved from the summer of '06. He looked at me and said, "Whose?" Emery Lane. There's no record of her in the archives. No missing persons report. No obituary. No school enrollment, nothing. It was like she never existed. But she did. She still does a few days ago. I received a package. No return address. Inside was a photograph, grainy, from a cheap disposable camera. It showed the old dock at Hidden Shoals, and standing on it was me. From behind and right beside me, soaking wet girl, holding my hand. I hadn't been to the lake in weeks. I burned the photo, but the next morning it was on my windshield. Last night I heard the song again. Only this time, it was coming from inside my house. I followed it to the bathroom. The tub was full again. Brackish water, smelling of algae and something dead. And when I looked inside, there was a girl's face staring up from beneath the surface. Her eyes opened underwater, and I finally said it. I'm sorry. Never meant for it to happen. She didn't blink. She just whispered, "You let me drown," and everything went black. I woke up gasping, on the floor, soaked. The bathroom was dry. The tub was empty. The mirror shattered. I don't know what's coming next. But I know she's not done. Because guilt doesn't stay buried, especially in small towns, especially when there's no body, no justice. Just a girl, alone in the dark, still humming that song, waiting to be remembered. And I remember now, every second. So if you live near Van Alstyne, don't go near that. Lake after dark. And if you hear a girl humming a song you don't recognize, run, because she finally knows I can hear her. And now, she's looking for you. Story 4. The closed motel in Electra tone, slow dread. Retro slasher vibes, distorted reality. You ever drive through a place that feels like time got stuck? That's what Electra, Texas is. Just west of Wichita Falls. Once an oil boom town now. A barely breathing husk with more abandoned buildings than people. Just off Highway 287, hidden by tall grass and silence, sits an old forgotten place. The Lariat Motel. 7 rooms. 1 neon sign. And a story no one wants to talk about. My name is Aaron Calloway. I'm a videographer on a YouTube channel where I explore abandoned places across Texas old schools. Collapsed drive-ins, roadside diners. Most of the time, it's mold, graffiti, and raccoons. Harmless. But the Lariat Motel was different. I didn't find it on Google Maps. I found it in a forum thread from 2004, titled, Places That Shouldn't Exist Anymore. One user wrote, "Don't stay there. The rooms remember, even if you don't." So obviously I went. The motel was tucked behind a rusted gas station. No cars, no people. The front office door was open, creaking in the wind, coated inside, dust-coated. Everything. A rotary phone sat silent on the desk, and behind it faded keys hung on a cracked wall. Room 3 had its key missing. So I picked room 4. Door creaked open easily. The place felt frozen. Floral bedspread, green shag carpet, dented mini fridge with a bottle of RC Cola still inside and on the nightstand. Handwritten names, dozens of them. Dates from the 70s to the early 2000s, but one page stopped me cold. July 6, 1981, Aaron Calloway, room 3, one night only. That's my name. I wasn't even born in 1981. I thought it had to be a prank. Some messed up coincidence. But then I noticed the ink was faded like all the others, and the paper yellowed, aged, authentic. I laughed nervously. Told myself it was some weird joke left by another explorer. Maybe they saw my channel and set it up for fun. Still, I didn't sleep that night. Not because of the heat or the silence. Because around 2:13 a.m., someone knocked, not on my door, on the wall behind my headboard. The shared wall with room. 3 knocks. Slow. Deliberate. I got up, walked outside, and looked through room 3's dusty window. It was empty, but the bed was. Made fresh. As if someone had just checked in. The next morning, I checked the office again. The guest book page was still there. My name. My handwriting or something like it. And room 3's key is now hanging on the hook. I took it. The moment I stepped inside room 3, the air changed. It was colder. Smelled faintly of old cologne and cigarette smoke. And on the nightstand was a Polaroid. A photo of a man standing in front of the Lariat Motel sign. Late 70s, by the look of his clothes, he was grinning. But the face, it was mine. Same eyes, same chin. Same scar on my eyebrow. On the back, someone had written, "Aaron, see your room is ready." I ran back to room 4 to pack my things. Except, now, room 4 didn't exist. There was no room 4. Just a wall between room 3 and room 5. I banged on it, confused. Was I losing it? Had I gotten turned around? But when I looked at my footage, room 4 was never there. Not in the hallway, not on my camera, just gone. I left, drove 3 hours straight without stopping. That night, I stayed at a real Motel Lights, people, continental breakfast. But something followed me. At 2:13 a.m., my hotel room TV flicked. Unstatic, loud, and then a video, footage I'd never taken, a grainy, analog shot of me standing in front of the Lariat Motel sign, same as the Polaroid. Only this time the video zoomed in on my face, and I blinked. Not the camera me. Screen, as if whoever was filming was right in front of me. While I was unaware, I left the TV running and took the stairs 2 at a time in the lobby. I asked the night clerk if anyone had requested my room or left a tape. He just looked at me blankly. "We don't have TVs with VCRs," he said. "You're not on the registry." I went home, deleted my footage. Every trace of the Lariat Motel, thought I could forget. Until last week. I got a package in the mail. Inside was an envelope with no stamp, no address, no name. Inside, another guestbook page. Same yellowed paper. Aaron Calloway, Room 3, July 6, 1981, but now, scrawled in red beneath it, "One night only," became forever and attached. The Room 3 key. That night, I dreamed of the motel. The walls bending, lights flickering, the knocking. 3 slow knocks. Only this time, it was inside the room. When I woke, my phone was open to my camera roll. The last image was a selfie, me sleeping. But the timestamp, 2:13 a.m. and I live alone. So if you ever pass through Electra, Texas, don't stop. Don't turn when you see the old gas station. Don't look for the Lariat Motel, because it remembers you even if you've never been. And once you check in, you'd never really leave. Story 5. The wind screams in Marfa tone. Existential horror. Surreal atmospheric dread. Marfa, Texas is known for 2 things. Its minimalist art scene and the lights. The Marfa lights, those strange glowing orbs that dance across the desert, at night have been around for over a century. Scientists have theories. Locals have warnings. But none of them explain what happened to me. My name is Evelyn Crow. I'm a landscape painter. After a rough divorce and a mental breakdown I don't really like to talk about, I left my life in Austin and rented a studio in Marfa, hoping to find peace. Or inspiration, or both. The first thing I noticed was the wind. It never stopped. Soft. During the day, roaring at night. It didn't blow in one direction. It circled like it was alive. Like it had somewhere to go, but never quite got there. Locals told me I'd get used to it. I never did. My studio was a converted barn just outside town. No Wi-Fi, no phone signal. Just silence and the sound of the wind breathing through the E. Cracks. The paintings came fast. At first it was what I expected. Sunsets, cacti, dry orange hills. But then something changed. I'd wake up with paint on my hands. Didn't remember starting. Each one was stranger than the last. People in the distance, faceless, watching doors that didn't lead anywhere. Skies that were too red. And always a figure in the background, far away, standing in the wind, watching me. I told myself it was just stress, trauma resurfacing. But then the wind started speaking, not words, not language, but tone, grief, anger, curiosity. I started sleeping with earplugs in. They didn't help. The wind got inside one morning. I woke to find my front door wide open. Sand dusted across the floor. My paintings all turned to face the wall. Every single one, and on the largest canvas, the one I'd been working on. For weeks someone had painted over it in thick black brushstrokes. A single message: the sky is a window. Do not look too long. I don't remember painting it. But I live alone. That night, I stepped outside around 2 a.m. The Marfa lights were out. Something else was there. A wall of wind, thick as fog, moving toward me across the desert. Not natural, not whether it had shape. It had presence. It didn't. Howl, it screamed. A low human sound. Not words, but layered voices like dozens of people shouting at once from inside a storm. I stumbled back into the studio and slammed the door shut. But the sound came through the walls, and within it I heard a name. Evelyn. My name. Clear. Familiar. Spoken from inside the wind. The next morning, found a photograph taped to my door. Old sepia-toned. It showed a woman standing in the middle of the desert. The face was faded, but the posture, the stance. The clothes, it was me. On the back, someone had scribbled. She looked too long. I tried to leave Marfa that day. Packed everything, locked the studio, and drove east. But no matter which road I took, I ended up back at the studio. GPS stopped. Working phone was dead. Compass spun like it was drunk. Time began to stretch. I'd blink and 3 hours would pass. Or a whole day. The sun didn't set right, it hovered too long at the edge of the sky, like it was afraid to dip below. And at night, the wind screamed louder. Then came the knock. 3 soft raps on my window. I was in bed. Paralyzed it wasn't. A human shape behind the glass it was shifting, like smoke trying to form a person but failing. And in the wind outside, that name again, Evelyn. I threw every canvas into the fire the next morning, but they didn't burn. The flames licked the edges. But the paint just bubbled, melted, then reformed. One canvas reshaped itself. The figure I'd painted weeks ago, far away, blurry was. Now, closer, clearer. It looked like me. I don't think I ever left Marfa. Not really, even now. Can't remember how long I've been here. Days, months, years. I write notes to myself. You are real. The wind is not. But the line is blurring. Some nights, I dream I'm outside, looking in, watching myself paint. And in those dreams, I scream. But there's no sound, just wind. Always wind, I found. A letter under my door yesterday, typed on yellow paper, no envelope. It read, "You looked too long. Now others will look through you, paint them a window, and tape to the bottom." It's a photograph of my studio at night, taken from above and in the window. A woman sitting at her easel. But the reflection on the glass wasn't me. If you ever go to Marfa, don't stay alone. Don't open the windows at night. And if the wind ever calls your name, don't answer, because it only calls those who are. It's already fading, and once it finds you, you'll never leave the frame. Story 6. Child of the Crooked Tree. Chireno tone. Rural folklore. Ancestral curse. Creeping on Azakai. Eno. Texas is the kind of town that looks like it grew up wrong. Trees twist the wrong way. The roads don't quite lead where you think they. Should the shadows feel older than the sun? It's a place where folklore isn't just remembered, it's feared. My name is Lila Montgomery. My family moved to Chireno last spring. Me, my husband Ryan, and our 6-year-old son. Eli. We didn't come for folklore, we came for quiet. Ryan had a heart attack at 40, and we thought a slower life would be healing. But what we found wasn't healing. It was watching. The house we bought was an old colonial warped floorboards, ivy-choked windows, and a backyard that sloped down into a thicket of pine and moss. At the very edge of the yard stood a single tree. It was massive, tall, and black-barked, but crooked, like it had bent itself away from something that terrified it long ago. The first time Eli saw it, he stopped mid-step and whispered, "It's waiting." I asked what he meant. He shrugged. The crooked tree, it's waiting for its child. Kids say creepy things. I brushed it off. But the next day he drew the tree. Again and again. Over and over, each drawing got more detailed, more human, until one showed a small, pale child hanging upside down from the lowest branch. The next day, I found Eli outside, standing beneath the tree. His arms raised as if expecting to be lifted, I yelled. He didn't move. When I got closer, I heard him whispering, not babbling. Whispering in a language we don't speak, that night. I asked the neighbors if they knew anything about the property. Most were polite. But one older woman, Mrs. Kimbrough, gave me a long stare and asked, "Has he seen the child yet?" I told her I didn't understand. She said, "The crooked tree's not just a tree. It's a door. Something came out of it a long time ago, or maybe it never left." Legend said a midwife in the 1800s was accused of witchcraft after a string of stillbirths in the region. She disappeared into the woods with her own newborn, and neither was ever seen again. But a week later, the tree appeared, twisted, gnarled, cracked down the middle. Locals said it grew overnight. They started calling it the birthing tree. I didn't believe her. Things got worse. Eli stopped talking, stopped eating. He would only draw. Every page was the same. The crooked tree and the child. but now the child's face looked more and more like Eli's, and the figure beside him, tall, hollow-eyed, looked like the tree itself had come to life. One night, we found Eli sleepwalking out the back door, heading straight for the tree. He stood at the trunk, one hand resting on the bark. The moment we touched him, he screamed like he was being burned. But the tree? It was ice cold. We tried a priest. He refused to step onto the property, told us some doors weren't meant to be closed because they never should have been opened. The breaking point came 3 nights later. I woke up to the sound of roots. Not just wind or creaks, but roots pulling, crawling, writhing beneath our floorboards. When we got to Eli's room, the window was wide open. His bed was empty. Outside, in the backyard, he stood at the tree, head tilted up, and the bark. It was moving, opening like a rib cage. Something stepped out, not a shadow. Not a ghost, a child, but not human. Its skin was bark. Its eyes were hollow knots. Its fingers curled like twigs breaking in a fire. Eli turned toward us and smiled, a smile that didn't belong on his face. He said, in that same old language, "Phrase I'll never forget, the child is returned. The blood is answered." I blacked out. When I woke, it was morning. Eli was in his bed. Drawing's gone. Tree untouched. But he doesn't remember anything. He calls me Leela now, not Mom. Sometimes when he laughs. It sounds like something else is laughing with him. We've tried to leave Chireno twice. Every time, the car won't start once. The engine melted from the inside out. Another time, the tires disappeared. Not slashed, not stolen, vanished. The tree remains quiet now, still. But some nights I swear it breathes. Eli still stares at it, but he doesn't draw anymore. I think it doesn't need him to, because now it remembers. The tree is waiting again. And someday, it might want another child if you're ever driving through deep East Texas and you pass a field with one tree twisted, dark, and alone. Don't stop, don't take pictures, and whatever you do, just don't let your child touch it, because it only needs to be touched once, then it never forgets. Story 7. The Dispatcher somewhere near Presidio. Ooh. Texas is so far west it feels like you're falling off the edge of the map. One road in, one road out. Border Patrol trucks, dust, heat, silence, and then there's the radio. Tower on Route 170. Locals call it the Needle. It's been there since the 1980s. A tall, rusted spike that still picks up emergency radio frequencies. But in the last few years, strange calls have started coming through. Ones that don't trace to anywhere. And sometimes aren't even human. My name is Jenna Hart. I'm a 911 dispatcher for West Texas. I've been in the job 11 years. I've heard it all. Overdoses, wrecks, fires, people talking to invisible things in the desert. You learn to spot the fake. One's fast. But some nights something gets through. This one started as a normal Tuesday, 10:41 p.m. Phone line rings, but the ID flashes blank. It's not supposed to happen. Even blocked calls show something, but this one, just unknown. I answered like always. 911. What's your emergency? The line crackled. Then a voice. Young male. Frantic. I need help. I think I hit something. Still moving? Oh God, what is that? Then static.
And nothing.
Call didn't drop. It just stopped. Protocol says to trace and report. But when I ran it, there was no ping. No tower. Only a note on the screen I'd never seen before. Route not mapped. Audio archived. I reported it to my supervisor. He shrugged. Could be a prank. Just flag it. I went home that night uneasy. 3 days later, same voice. Different call. It followed me. I left it in the road. But it came to the motel. I locked the door, please. Then static again. But this time, I heard a knock. 3 sharp knocks. On his end. And then on mine. I froze. There was no one in the dispatch center. No visitors. Just me. But I heard the knock. Again, clear as day, on the window behind me. When I turned, the parking lot was empty. I pulled the call audio and played it back. What? Heard wasn't just a knock. It was a reply, like something was listening on both ends. Over the next week, 5 more calls came in. All from unknown. All from that same voice. Started sounding less human. His words were slower, more strained, like he was trying to talk through sand. One call was just a single sentence, whispered, "They don't let you die out." Here, then 12 seconds of silence. And breathing, not his eye. Became obsessed. I stayed late, listened to the tapes over and over. One night, filtered the static and layered the calls. What I found chilled me, and every single one underneath his voice was another voice, faint, repeating one phrase. "We hear you. We're coming." The same rhythm, over and over, like a chant, like a promise. I drove to Presidio. I needed to see the tower. The Needle, it was dusk when I got there. The air was hot and still. The tower stood crooked against the blood-red sky. Vultures circled, but there were no birds near the base. No sound at all. Just buzzing like a radio stuck between channels. As I walked closer, my phone lit up. No signal, just a screen that said, "Answer." Oh, I didn't touch anything, but a voice came through the speaker. "Him, they want someone new." Then a sharp click, and behind me, a car door slammed. There were no other cars nearby. When I turned, no one was there, just the wind. And that damn tower buzzing louder. I ran, drove for hours without stopping. Didn't sleep. The next day back at dispatch, I checked. The call archives, the last recording, it wasn't his voice anymore. It was mine, panicked, pleading, saying, "I need help. I think I hit something." Still moving exactly what he said in the first call, down to the breath. I never said that. But the system said I did. Now I get a call every night. The same time, 10:41 p.m. Always unknown. I stopped answering. But it keeps ringing, even when the phones are unplugged. Sometimes I hear static in my dreams. Sometimes I wake up and my headset is in my hand, recording light blinking red. And last night, someone knocked on my window at 10:41, 3 times, and whispered, "Your route's not mapped either." If you ever find yourself driving through Presidio, your radio crackles with a voice begging for help, don't answer. And if someone tells you about a tower that hears everything, tell them you're not listening because the desert is wide. But someone is always waiting on the other end. And sooner or later,